Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Shane, and welcome back to the Horror Basement and another installment in our classic horror review series. Today, we're going to be talking about The Brain That Wouldn't Die, that was originally filmed back in 1959 but wasn't released until 1962 because apparently the MPAA, or whatever governing body at the time, thought the movie was too violent to be released, and which honestly is kind of laughable watching it now. So this movie follows uh, our main protagonist, Bill, who also happens to be the mad scientist of the movie, because this is more of a science fiction horror film. So Bill is an up and coming surgeon who is doing research into transplanting organs and limbs, which at the time was more science fiction than science fact. And he manages to revive a dead patient that him and his father, who is also a surgeon, was working on by electrocuting parts of his brain. And of course, after this, Bill's father gives him the store brand Frankenstein speech, to where he can't be playing God and his science is bad science and he's not supposed to do it. Uh, but then the dad leaves town and we never see him again, and we are introduced to Bill's soon-to-be wife, his fiancée Jan, who is the titular brain that wouldn't die. And for the first time, Bill is going to take Jan up to his town home, or his summer mansion, to show her all of the weird and crazy experiments he's been doing. But unfortunately, on the way there, they get into a massive car crash because Bill was speeding down the road for no particular reason. And we don't see this, of course, but in the car crash, Jan is actually decapitated. So instead of calling the cops or doing whatever any reasonable person would do, Bill grabs the head, wraps it up in his suit jacket, and does kind of a light jog the rest of the way to the mansion, where his Igor, or Fritz from the first Frankenstein movie stand-in, his lab assistant Kurt, who has looks like a necrotic almost looking left arm. They take the head down into the laboratory and attach it up to Bill's chemistry set, pretty much, with a bunch of beakers and tubes running around. Uh, so they stick her head in a pan of Bill's magic science serum that keeps people alive. And for the remainder of the movie, while she remains to be a character, Jan is essentially just a head sitting in a pan of what looks like a black liquid. And it's interesting how they shot this, because there isn't a side to the table, so it's just a flat table, and you'd be able to see under it to where the rest of the actress's body is actually. So in the wide shots, it's always filmed from behind, where you just see the back of her head that's all bandaged up. And then anytime the actress playing Jan is actually talking, or she's on the camera, it's zoomed in real far. It's a tight shot to where you just see her head in the table. So a really pretty cheap way of filming that, as compared to in Reanimator, where they actually had the guy, where they use a couple different tricks to shoot the head of, I can't remember the fellow's name, but the decapitated head that led all the zombies in Reanimator. So Bill has a problem. Obviously, he kept his fiancée alive, but now she's just a head in a pan. So he needs to find her a body. So the rest of this movie is mostly Bill trying to essentially find an attractive woman and lure her back to his house so he can cut her head off and give Jan the body. Now, there's no... and of course, it's explained to us through exposition that Bill's magic science serum will stop the head from rejecting the body or vice versa. So apparently, with this magic black goop, you don't have to worry about blood type or antibodies or anything. So you would think a mad scientist would have a problem just picking up chicks and getting them back to his house. But really, Bill has the opposite problem, to where he can't get just one woman alone. So his first misadventure, he actually goes to a burlesque diner. It's shot in this little bordello-looking place, but I wouldn't call them strippers because they don't get naked at any point. So they're burlesque or exotic dancers, and he's chatting the main one up, and she seems pretty down. But then, of course, the other jealous burlesque dancer comes in, and since he can't very well take both of them because he only needs one body, he kind of excuses himself and leaves, and the strippers get into a little cat fight where the one gets on top of the other and is slapping her around. And then they actually they cut to a shot of like one of those old-timey like cat clocks, and there's actually like a meow sound, so that was a funny little comedy beat in there. But after that, Jan's head wakes up, and she's yelling at Kurt that him and Bill shouldn't have kept her alive, they should have let her die, and that they don't know, like, she's going to get revenge on them. And that, of course, is also going to include the monster that Bill has locked up in the closet in the same room where Jan's head is sitting. So the backstory behind the monster character is that he was like the guinea pig for all of Bill's experiments. So he's supposed to be this horribly deformed failure of an experiment that they have to keep locked up so that he doesn't go on a rampage. But unbeknownst to Bill and Kurt, the magic head juice has also given Jan psychic powers to where she can now talk to and communicate with the monster that I just referred to as Closet Boy in my notes for the film here. So after this, Bill is driving around looking like a major creeper, kind of just staring at women as he drives by them slowly, which is not the right way to go about trying to lure a woman back to your house to decapitate. But in short order, he actually comes upon one of his former interns, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we should head back to my place real quick, and then I'll take you out and do whatever you want." But her friend, runs up and also wants to go to this bikini contest or like a beauty pageant thing that they all go to. So Bill ends up going with them, even though he knows now he can't abduct them because there's two of them there. So really this problem is, Bill's real problem is that he's just too handsome and has too much game to where he can't get just one woman alone, so he can cut her head off and give the body to his fiancée. But the two ladies that he's with mentions that Doris, this girl they all went to high school with, has a better body than all of the girls on the bikini contest stage. So Bill decides to go visit Doris, and Doris's backstory is that she trusted a man once, and then something bad happened to her. It's not really clear what happened, but she's posing in a bikini for a bunch of sleazy photographers, and then she tells them all to fuck off, and is talking to Bill, and she pulls back her hair to show the scar on the side of her face, which really just looks like kind of a little bit of a scar and some almost looks like eczema around it, and it was totally covered by her hair when she had her hair down. So I don't know why it's such a big deal for her. I guess maybe she's a little bit too vain about her looks. But Bill promises her that him and his father are like the world's best plastic surgeons, and they can totally remove the scar tissue and everything. She just has to come back to his house so that they can have like a consult with the three of them. And so do end up they do end up driving back to Bill's palatial estate. But in the meantime, Jan tricks Kurt into opening the door and seeing what Closet Boy is doing. And when he does that, Closet Boy reaches his arm out and grabs Kurt and actually pulls his good arm, his normal arm, into his like enclosure and just straight rips it off. So that's like a funny comeuppance because Kurt was being an asshole to Jan the whole time. So he gets his one good arm like ripped off, and of course he bleeds to death within a matter of minutes. And but Bill is unaware of that until he gets home, and he's kind of got Doris hanging out in the foyer, and he goes into the laboratory because that's apparently where he keeps his liquor cabinet as well. So he's in there pouring drinks, and of course he pours some unknown liquid into one of the drinks to basically roofie Doris. But he sees Kurt's dead body laying in the corner with one of his arms ripped off, and just kind of casually lays a sheet over him and goes back to charming Doris. And Doris drinks her drink and kind of comes to the realization that she's been drugged, but just as she does, she kind of passes out and falls into Bill's arms. And Bill's got her, takes her into the lab, gets her up on the slab, and is getting ready to operate to remove her head, just as Closet Boy starts banging on the door real hard. So he goes over to investigate, and of course, like, the whole door breaks down, and Closet Boy pops out, and he looks basically like Sloth from the Goonies, but intended to be a little bit more scary. And the monster, Closet Boy, was actually played by an actor who had gigantism that was legitimately 7'3". So just the size difference between him and Bill looks really good. And of course, kind of in almost the fashion of the old Universal monster movies, like, the monster's here, so we wrap up like real quick. The monster grabs Bill, and he's knocking shit everywhere, and of course something that they knock over lights the lab on fire, and fire is going up all around him. And Closet Boy like grabs Bill and bites a big chunk out of his neck and face, and kind of throws him to the ground for him to bleed to death. And as Jan's head is sitting there and Bill is bleeding to death on the floor, Closet Boy, the monster, scoops up Doris and just walks out of the lab. And then we fade to black and the movie's over. So this was a very interesting movie. I'd heard good things about it. Basically, it's a really good example of like a schlocky B movie. But there are definitely some funny and compelling moments, like the scenes where he's trying to get the girls alone and being a major like creeper, kind of sending off like Ted Bundy vibes, 20-25 years before that was a thing. They were pretty enjoyable, and there was some good like comedy elements there. And the only big downside is that I wish we would have seen more of the monster, because I liked the monster makeup, and the actor playing the monster did a really good job. But other than that, the only big takeaway is that the film looks really cheaply made. Now the picture quality and the sound and everything's fine, but it has all the hallmarks of B movie, like the cheap sets. You know, they use like 2 or 3 sets for the entire movie, and the sound or the music is kind of paint by numbers, like very conventional, like dramatic, like dun 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 horror music, and but that's kind of what you expect with a film like this, to where it was probably made on like a shoestring budget. But overall, taking all that into consideration, I would still recommend this movie. Um, this was one of the first movies I reviewed to where I've kind of flip flopped on whether I want to recommend it or not. Because it really doesn't do anything too crazy or too special, but it's fun. You know, it's just kind of a dumb science fiction monster movie. So overall, it's enjoyable. So that's about all I've got to say about this one. So if you enjoyed this video, I just ask you to check out the other classic horror review series movies. I've got them all the reviews, I've got them all in a playlist on my channel here. And if you enjoyed the video, I just ask you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Thank you.